So hello, and welcome to this juicy, potentially spicy, and at times controversial essential oil chat with Jessie and Amy. So I'd like to introduce to you a very special guest. Amy, she's an aromatherapist and a nurse. So Amy, how are you doing today?
Good.
Good. I'm happy to hear that. I'm happy you're here. So if you're here live or on the replay, feel free to say hello, where you're tuning in from, and I can read that. But before we really get started and dive into the meat and potatoes, I want to start with a really important disclaimer. This might cause some emotions to arise. It might make some people mad. It also, it just might create those emotions. And I just want to say that's not our intention to create those kind of emotions. Is just to basically spread awareness on essential oil usage, essential oil safety, just because as aromatherapists, we see a lot of kind of unsafe information circulating around social media in particular. A lot of times it's in MLM communities. Am I saying that MLMers are bad or reps are bad? No. Is this to attack the MLM community or reps? No. I just think there's a lot of information that a lot of people don't have access to, because the only information they really get provided in terms of information is a lot of time they get information in regards to essential oils is a lot of times from their upline. So we just kind of wanted to shed some light on some things so you can make a better, safer, and more empowered choice for you and your family. Take it or leave it. There might be some things that we say that you disagree with. That's totally okay. But yeah, we just wanted to open it up. And like you said, we might be opening up Pandora's box. So if at any time you have a question, you're watching live, feel free to ask. We might actually answer questions during this thing. We might also answer a little bit at the very end. If you're watching on the replay, sorry, you won't have Amy to ask questions to. So this is the time. So what, I don't know if you guys have seen my social media stories recently, but I talked about some concerning things that I saw on social media. And that's when Amy contacted me. She's like, girl, I have some stories for you as an aromatherapist. This is what I heard, and this really concerns me. So we're going to start our session off with story time with Amy and kind of why we decided to do this live together. So take it off. What the heck happened, Amy? Tell us everything.
Okay, so I about 8 years ago joined with an MLM, and during that time, so this was my first exposure to essential oils was with this MLM company. So of course I loved essential oils. I was taking it all in, everything that they were saying. I was joining all the groups I could join. So I joined this group and on Facebook, and I had forgotten that I joined this group until something popped up about a year ago, somewhere around that time frame. And it was a notification, and I was like, oh, what's this group? I forgot I was a part of it. So I clicked on it, and it was this whole feed about RSV protocols. And so I thought, oh, that's really interesting. And by this time, I should mention that I had a lot more experience with essential oils. I was in my aromatherapy training, and I'm trying to think if I was newly certified or if I was almost there. So I was really interested in seeing what this was all about. And so I clicked on it, and I was horrified because the protocols that they were suggesting were just not in line with the safety considerations that I was learning as an aromatherapist. So just to give you an example of so there were 4 different protocols that they were suggesting. And just to give you an example, now they're talking about teeny tiny babies. This mom that had asked the question had a 3-week-old baby. And then there were other moms joining in the conversation who were like, oh yeah, my baby has RSV too. And some of them were about 3 months. But these were all young babies. And so these protocols were, apply On Guard or apply
Breathe.
Yeah. So this was actually the immunity oil, the first one, On Guard on the bottom of the baby's feet 2 to 3 times a day to fight off viral infection, or apply Melissa, thyme, or oregano. There's no mention of dilution. I should say too, with any of these oils, other than to say dilute if needed. Another suggestion was to apply lemon down baby's spine. Another was, frankincense on chest and upper back. And then the fourth one was to apply the Breathe blend on baby's chest, upper back, and diffuse it in their room all night long. And then to take Breathe or peppermint, put it in your hand and cup it over the baby's mouth and nose. Now, these are 3-week-old babies. And so I saw all this, and I'm not a controversial person. I don't like to get in arguments. I'm not looking for contention. I avoid contention like the plague. But I had to say something. And so I did, and I was kind about it. And it was just not taken very well. Some of the moms thankfully private messaged me, and I was able to kind of have a conversation with them about some other things that they could do. So I'm glad that I said something. But the people who are running this group were not happy with me, and they made some videos. Each of them made a video about, why they shouldn't listen to aromatherapists, why people shouldn't listen to aromatherapists, and why they should listen to them instead. And so anyway, it was a situation where, as that contention arose, I just kind of left it alone because I didn't want to get into this fight. I had said my piece, I guess, is the best way to say it. And I just decided I'd leave it at that. But ever since then, I see these different practices, I guess you would call them, floating around on social media. And it just really concerns me because essential oils are wonderful and they're powerful. And they should also very much be thought about in terms of like safe usage and proper usage and dosing and all of that kind of stuff.
Yeah. And like, I really like that you said something like enough to like make people think that if they're like, what, maybe I shouldn't be listening, or maybe I should be doing my safety research. But in a sense, like I can understand why she's upset. Like it kind of ruins her business in the sense that you're like second guessing her. There might be some people in our audience that might be like, I don't understand what's wrong with that. Mm-hmm. I can help you. Definitely. We can like bounce off of each other, but what's wrong or what's kind of dangerous and unsafe about the protocols just mentioned?
So with the particular, with the first one, with the On Guard oil, so that has, you're testing me a little bit.
Oh, that's okay. I can help you.
So it's got cinnamon bark, clove, eucalyptus, lemon, and I think rosemary in it.
Yeah, I think it's orange when it's like orange, but yeah, it's a lemon.
And there are several immunity blends that are similar to that, and so they vary slightly. But anyway, so right off the bat, you've got cinnamon bark, which is a huge dermal irritant. Like it's a huge skin sensitizer, which means that if you apply it to your skin, it can cause rash, it can cause burning, it can cause all sorts of issues. Maybe not the first time that you use it, but over time it will. And you don't want to do that to a brand new baby who's just developing and who just came into this world with all this sensitive skin, So that's the first one. And then you've got, is there clove in there? I think there's.
Yeah, there is. Tammy says it's making me cringe. Yes. She gets it.
Oh, yes.
Clove is in there as well. And it's a essential oil that they say not to use dermally, like on the skin of kids under 2.
Right.
Plus we have cinnamon.
Yep. And cinnamon bark, I think, is 5, kids under 5. So if I remember right off the top of my head. And they're both cinnamon and clove are can be mucus membrane irritants, and then if you move on to the Breathe, like just there are 1,8-cineol rich essential oils in there. There's menthol rich essential oils in there, and you're taking it and cupping it over a baby's mouth, and you can cause respiratory distress when you're trying to help with this. RSV is a respiratory virus, and you can cause more problems. There Jessie, you were just telling me about a story about a mom who caused that in her child with
I could definitely talk about that for a little bit if you like.
Yeah.
But yeah, looking at Breathe is really, really powerful for respiratory health, or Easy Air in the Canadian realm. It's a blend that you can buy in certain companies, or a company. And there's the company, I mean, the oil, it actually has a lot of essential oils, such as, like you said, rich in when it's cineol, menthol. We have like peppermint, we have cardamom, we have eucalyptus. These are all essential oils that are quote unquote risky or unsafe for young children because it can cause respiratory distress, which I'd mentioned to Amy previously. I had talked to someone. We know this in theory. As a aromatherapist, but I actually talked to someone who this has happened to them, where it actually happened with peppermint, where their child decided to smell peppermint directly from the bottle. I forget the age. I think it was like about 2 years old or something like that. You can check my Instagram, IGTV. And he smelt it and he went into respiratory distress where it was really hard for him to breathe. She contacted the company where the essential oil was from. They're like, look, contact your doctor. Contacted the doctor. Like, look, we don't actually know what to do. Like, we don't know how to help your kid breathe. And then they said, contact poison control. And she's contacted poison control. They're like, we don't know what we can do. So she said at points, like, he wasn't very responsive. So she'd like blow in his face to try and get him to like breathe. But if you want to see the story, you can definitely check out my Instagram. But this stuff happens. And I think so often, especially in communities like MLM communities, again, this is not against MLM communities, but this information goes around, is that they'll say, well, I use it for my kids, so it's totally fine for your kid. But we don't know if, a child would react that way if they fall under the categories of it being unsafe for them, generally speaking. Doesn't mean they will have reactions, but they definitely can. It's a riskier age range for certain essential oils. But yeah.
Yeah. And knowledge is power, right? So, so these things are important to know. And I don't think that, not that I feel like, essential oil distributors, who are part of MLM companies have malicious intent, but I think they know that essential oils work. And beyond that, there's not a whole lot of, and they know, like, breathe for respiratory, or, these different, they know kind of what to use for what, but beyond that, there's not a whole lot of knowledge. That's not for everybody, though. I don't mean to say that as a blanket statement, because I do know, actually, I'm thinking of a friend who is an aromatherapist, and she is also part of a big essential oil company, and she distributes oils, and she's very good at talking about safety. But that's generally not the case.
Yeah. So I guess takeaways, be careful where you get your information from, which we'll talk about a little later in this talk. And also babies, I'm not a huge fan of using essential oils on babies. If you do, make sure it's actually safe for the baby, make sure it's properly diluted for the baby. And be careful with essential oils like peppermint, eucalyptus, cineol rich eucalyptus blends like Breathe, for example. Like it's really risky.
We talked a little bit about, or we didn't talk about, but I brought up 3 of the other oils that they mentioned: Melissa, thyme, and oregano, for these little babies. Like, I rarely use oregano myself because it's so strong and potent. Same with thyme. It's just, I just can't wrap my brain around using it on these little tender babies.
Yeah, oregano is like when I need the big guns, I bring it out, but it's like short durations, not like all the time, which some people will do like every day, all day for like immune support prevention, which is like pretty strong.
Yeah.
Is that okay if we go on the next topic?
Yep.
All right. So next one is essential oils are natural, so they're safe, right? What would you say about that, Amy?
Oh, let's think about.
I hear this a lot.
Yeah, let's think about other things that are natural. Let's see. I do have a few notes here, but when you think about other things that are natural, they're not always safe. Safety must always be considered. Let's see. So let's think about, like, arsenic is a natural product, right? Is that safe? not product, a naturally occurring chemical. Snake venom, things like that. And I'm not saying that essential oil falls into that same category. There are safe ways to use them. I think the big thing to remember here is that safety, when you're thinking and talking about safety, it depends on the person using it. There's so many things that it depends on. And so sometimes they're just not safe. Let's take wintergreen, for example. Okay. So wintergreen is amazing for pain. And I just saw this comment by Tammy, hemlock. Yes, hemlock is natural, and you don't go around touching it.
Good one, Tammy.
Yeah. I forage in the mountains, and that is a big one. Like, I've had to teach my kids and show them what that is, because that can be very dangerous. So wintergreen. So the methyl salicylate. How do you say this?
Salicylate.
Salicylate. There you go. It's amazing for pain, but if you have somebody who's on like blood thinners or is going to get ready to go into surgery, that's not something that you would want to use on them. So it's natural, and it's probably better than some synthetic pain relievers. But in that case, it's not something that's safe for that person.
Yeah. And like, there are some essential oils that should be avoided in general, that should never be sold, that are like straight out like toxic.
Yes.
But even among essential oils that are sold, like you said, it depends on your circumstance. Like if you're a child, maybe there's essential oils that should be avoided. If you're pregnant, maybe there's essential oils to be avoided. Even if your upline says, hey, there's only clary sage and maybe jasmine that you should avoid, there's actually more. And this whole clary sage, avoiding it in pregnancy, is kind of a controversial, like, sort of debunked in a sense, but you can definitely check out my pregnancy and essential oils thing. And like, if you're on certain kind of medications, there might be certain essential oils to be avoiding, even topically and aromatically. Sometimes people think like, oh, like if I'm on medications, it just means I can't ingest certain essential oils. And there are some essential oils that are best to be avoided, even if you are using them aromatically or topically and you're on certain kind of medications. I just want to bring that up too.
Well, and even on a kind of a smaller scale, let's think about like bergamot. You're not going to apply bergamot and then go out in the sun. You'll get a phototoxic reaction. But bergamot is amazing for uplifting your mood and so many different things. But in that situation, not safe, right?
Yeah. I like that you mentioned that. I totally forgot about phototoxicity. But yeah, that's a good thing to bring up too.
Yeah.
Toxicity. And yeah, if you have any health conditions, there might be essential oils to avoid. So do your research. I think I'll leave it at that.
There's no way we could cover all of that in just this little chat that we're having. But
no, definitely not. Next one is, what are some common unsafe practices being promoted? Because I know when you are in the, I guess I want to say MLM space, sometimes the only usage of essential oils you've heard and you've seen are from your upline. It's really hard to gauge like what's right, what's not. Because I know when I was a part of my last MLM, it was like, I would say, hey, I heard that like this isn't good if you're epileptic, or I heard this wasn't good if da da da. And they'd say, be careful where you get your information from. Like the company has their own like education system, like stick within the company. They provide such good information. We have doctors, we have scientists, all that kind of stuff. At the same time, they actually don't have aromatherapists on staff, which is pretty interesting. And I think a lot of times people will say, oh, well, they have doctors, they must know everything. Which isn't necessarily the case. So let's talk about, if there's anything you want to add to what I said, you can, but let's talk about some common unsafe practices being promoted so that people can maybe say, hey, she actually thinks it's unsafe, and they can look into it if that's what they choose. If they don't, I mean, it's their life. They can use their oils how they want.
Yeah, one big one that I think is talked about a lot is dropping essential oils in water. Essential oils don't readily mix into water. You need a soluble, you need something. So essential oils are fat loving. And so you need something that is both fat loving and water loving. in order to mix this essential oil into water. So regardless of what you think about internal usage of essential oils, because I know that there are varying degrees of, even in the aromatherapist world, some feel it's okay and some feel like you should avoid internal usage at all costs. So I'm not really talking about that. But what I am talking about is just dropping it in water. So let's take lemon, for example. Lemon is another oil that can be phototoxic. So which means when you go out in the sun, if it's exposed to sunlight, there is a reaction, a dermal reaction on your skin. So you drop that lemon essential oil in water, and then you know, maybe you're outside on your deck or your porch and you're enjoying the sunlight and you've got your lemon water and you take a swig of this water and now you've got that lemon oil because it's separating from the water. You've got that on your lips and you've got the sun coming down. You know, what do you think is going to happen? So that's, I mean, the first like kind of red flag for me. Another thing is you're drinking it and all of a sudden all of these sensitive areas in your mouth and your throat are exposed to this lemon essential oil, which will cause irritation, and maybe not right away. And maybe you won't even notice it as it's happening, but it's happening.
Yeah. And I like how you touched on two different things. You said like putting essential oils in your water, not a good idea. And then using like phototoxic oils. If you're doing that, it's not properly mixing. It's going to be phototoxic. I've heard of it happening to at least one person. And it's just something to really consider, which is really good. I'm glad that you're saying that. I forget, what was the last thing you said again?
Affecting those mucus membranes, those really tender.
Yes. And like sometimes
membranes.
And sometimes people have like digestive issues that like can't really be reversed. Some people do. And I, you know, have you ever heard of like MLMers saying like, well, our method is the French method. That's why we put essential oils in water. Have you ever heard that?
Yes.
Yeah. So I came from the MLM world. That's kind of where I learned more about oils, had my first experience with oils. Then I became an aromatherapist. And I feel like my training is really, really conservative. So I don't necessarily agree with how conservative it is. Like I pushed my limits, definitely, for me personally. And then I hear this so much and I was like, maybe there is this like French aromatherapy thing that people actually drink essential oils with water. So I contacted a French aromatherapist on Instagram. I said, hey, look, I'm an aromatherapy student. And like, I hear this so much that like the French method of using essential oils is putting essential oils in water. Like, can you confirm this for me? Like, cause I mean, it is running so rapid. Like you start to believe like, maybe it's real. Like maybe it's just my school that doesn't teach that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And she's like, no. She's like, don't put essential oils in water. She's like, I have a doctor friend that works with like natural medicine as well as like pharmaceuticals. So she does both. And she's like, she's seen patients who have like had injuries. I can't remember if it's like in their esophagus or whatnot, but like she's like burns and injuries and like they need to get that fixed because they put essential oils in their water. She's like, it just makes me want to pull on my hair. I don't know why people do it. So if any of you guys are wondering like, who are these English aromatherapist chicks telling us not to? They don't know the French method. I'm like, I've checked it out with French aromatherapists. So, I mean, I'm just want to put that out there.
Well, and to add to that, if I can too, part of my training was a French aromatherapy course, and learning about safe internal usage of essential oils. And that is something that they very much wanted their students to understand, that essential oils and water do not mix. You don't mix. You don't just drop essential oils in your water. There are safe ways to use them internally, and there are safety considerations.
Yes.
So,
and I love your schooling. Yeah, I love your schooling. I'll be probably studying under her sometime soon because I like that she has that like French aromatherapy with like English aromatherapy approach. Cause like, I don't know if you know this, but I do speak French. So I do see like French literature and I'm like, okay, they teach a little bit different than like what English aromatherapists learn. So I'm excited to really get that balanced approach there. Other unsafe. You've mentioned this before in like our private conversations, but there's this thing, and I don't disagree with internal usage. Okay. I just want to be clear about that. Cause sometimes people say, you're just a hater. You just hate internal usage. I'm okay with it. I think there's safe ways of doing it, but there's also unsafe ways of doing it. And one has been like, people would just like drop essential oils into their mouth. you've seen it, right?
Yes. I have a friend who had like a little bit of a tickle in her throat. And again, she was getting her information from someone who didn't have, from her upline, from somebody who just had just kind of a basic knowledge. And so she was told to drop oregano essential oil neat, which means without any dilution.
Just and it's a hot oil that burns. Yeah.
Oh yeah. And to do it just multiple times throughout the day, just to get rid of this tickle in her throat and to prevent her from getting an illness. And so she did it, and she lost her voice. It burned so much, and she completely lost her voice. I think for like 2 or 3 weeks. It was so bad. She learned not to do that, but that's a tough lesson to learn. So don't do that. Don't drop essential oils neat down your throat.
Yeah. Or even under your tongue. I know people put it under their tongue.
Yes. Another thing that I've seen a lot is, drop some peppermint in your hand, stick your thumb in it, and then stick it on the roof of your mouth.
Yeah. Not neat.
No.
Yeah, that's not the way.
Don't do that.
Yeah. So Tammy said a family member ended up with esophagitis. I can't say that properly. You're a nurse. Can you say it for me? Esophagitis?
Esophagitis.
Yeah. Gastritis, etc. after drinking essential oils with water. Yeah, it's a real thing. And just in certain communities, they're like, no, just keep going. It's just a coincidence, or like our essential oils are pure. They must have used a different brand. Mm-hmm. But thank you for sharing that, Tammy, because I think a lot of people need to know that. It doesn't always happen though. And that's the thing. I think that's what's so dangerous too, is like, it doesn't always happen. Right. And that's what gives people the basis of saying, well, I've done it for so long, so it's like totally fine,
Yeah. And an important thing to mention too is just because you're not noticing the effects of it yet doesn't mean that it's not happening.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah. And that's kind of how sensitization works, right? Where people will use essential oils neat, which is another practice that I see taught a lot, but using essential oils neat constantly as a habit. I'm not totally against the neat usage of essential oils. I think there are exceptions, but I'm just kind of putting that out there. But people will use essential oils neat on their skin for a long time, and they might not get a reaction the 30th time or the 70th time, but maybe it's the 71st time. And then that's when your body goes into like a full-fledged sensitization where sometimes people can't even use the oil ever again. Mm-hmm. Sometimes they can, sometimes they can't, but even like diluted, their body's like, they recognize it as something that they shouldn't, like it's something that's bad kind of thing.
Yeah.
I think we pretty much touched on things. I guess on unsafe practices would just be assuming that all essential oils are safe for everyone. Like we mentioned, not all essential oils are safe for kids. Not all essential oils are safe in pregnancy. And people on certain kind of medications, certain kind of medical issues. But is there anything else? We've talked about neat usage, internal usage.
What do you think about this? So I've seen this go around a lot, dumping a whole bunch of essential oil in a diffuser and then letting it run all night long. What do you think about that?
Okay, so I wish I had like my books and like references out to like really back this up, but it is not recommended to be using a lot of essential oils running constantly. I see people even like recommending like, oh, put this essential oil in your kid's diffuser a lot, put it all night, shut the door. I recommend intermittent diffusing as being like the best kind of diffusion, which is kind of like 30 minutes on, 30 minutes off, or giving your body that break, not using excessive amounts and having like ideally airflow. It's funny because I actually talked to one of my profs because I went, my initial essential oil education was like MLM world. And then I went to aromatherapist mode where, I don't know if you've ever experienced this, maybe not with your program, but you start to see everything as like dangerous for a bit.
Yeah, you do.
And then you're like, okay, you should never use essential oils diffuse constantly. But like, I believe there's a time and a place to use essential oils continuously, like if the room's big enough, if you're using like smaller amounts. But I feel like a lot of times people say like use a bunch of oils, run it all the time. It's really for money and profit. Like the more oils you use, the more you have to buy and the more your upline, like profits from it. Because I remember going to one training, I had like a business training to like grow my team when I was part of the last oily MLM I was a part of. And one person said, I have a question about it. Like, how many essential oil drops do you actually put in a roller ball? Because I'm seeing this like really low, I'm seeing really high. And the upline who was training us was like, oh, just tell them to use like this much, like the higher amount, because you want them to use the oils. You want them to go through it faster. If they go through it faster, they'll have to buy more. And that's really creates like a sustainable business financially. So I think it's important to understand that that's at play too. Are people intentionally trying to hurt other people? I don't think so. I think a lot of people don't understand the safety risks of using like really, really high dilution rates constantly all the time. If that makes sense.
Yeah, I totally agree. I don't think that there's any malicious intent behind it other than just they want to sell their product, right? And they just don't have the information needed to do that safely. And I would agree with you. I think there's a time and a place to diffuse continuously. But I think then another thing that's important to remember is that more is not always more. You know what I mean? Like, you can get away with just a few drops of essential oil, and that's actually a very sustainable way to use essential oils.
Yeah, so, less is more. Because I think sometimes people say, well, if I use double the drops, it'll be like double potent. But it's like, no, it's actually, I think in some cases it's actually less effective when you use too much.
Yeah, and the safety hazard, I guess you would call it, goes up, but not the benefits. Like the risk outweighs the benefits at that point, I think.
I agree. I don't know if there's anything else I can think about.
I did see, this isn't super common, but I did see just the other day a suggestion for children again to drop some breathe essential oil in your palm and dip your fingers in it and then go like this to your baby. Like,
shut up.
Yeah. And I'm like, okay, common sense says that that's going to fly into that baby's eyes, you know?
Yeah, I've gotten that in my eye and I'm it burns. Burns. Which I'll say, if any of you guys get essential oils in your eye, because this can happen even if you use essential oils responsibly, is you can like grab like a paper towel, put like carrier oil or like olive oil and dab where it is, and usually like the pain will go away. I generally don't recommend rinsing that with water until the pain has gone away, just because water and oil don't mix. But I have seen Tisserand sage just to rinse it out with normal water. But I've done like the dabbing, and then I've also flushed it with coconut oil. So yeah. And also, another thing about that story, just in case people are like, I don't understand what else is wrong with it. Breathe, again, is an essential oil that can cause respiratory distress among young children. It's also phototoxic. So you're sprinkling on your kids. You have like little sprinkles of like phototoxic oils, because I believe there's lemon in there. So it's like, it's not safe for kids. It's phototoxic. It's not diluted, and it can get into your eyes. Yeah, I wouldn't really recommend that. Just for those listening and wondering what we think. All right. Are we ready for the next one, or do you have something else that you'd like to pick up?
So that's all I can think of when it comes to safe practices. It just really is important to consider safety. And I think I have a little bit more to say, but I think it goes with the other topic a little better.
Okay. And the next topic is aromatherapists versus MLMers. Do they hate each other, and what's the deal? Amy, what's your take on it?
So there seems to be like this, like you said, there's a lot of MLMers that say things like, be careful where you get your information from, or I chose not to be an aromatherapist because I believe in the modality. I've actually heard this. I believe in the modality of XYZ company that I'm part of. And I just think like, that's not a modality. That's just selling product. And then the other way around too. I mean, there are some aromatherapists who are just very, really very negative towards MLMers. And I don't think that has to be the case. I think that there's value in both. And I think that if there's understanding, like, I just don't like it. I don't know what more to say on it other than it's hard for me to watch because it doesn't have to be the way it is.
Mm, yeah. And I agree, like it doesn't have to be that way. Like there doesn't have to be division. Like I know when I was just strictly an MLMer, like I felt there was a lot of heat. Sometimes there was aromatherapists that were like not so pleasant.
Yes.
And they're really like, I think sometimes like I think it's important for both parties to just stay humble and not say, well, I'm right. Da, 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 da. And then when I was an aromatherapist, I also got a lot of heat or people just like being really negative and really mean and really rude because I was an aromatherapist or just like poo-pooed on me, kind of thing. And I just don't think that has to happen. But I think the reason why it does happen, for those who kind of haven't really looked into it a lot, I think the reason why it happens is because a lot of people like MLMers will find essential oils that work for them, that change their life, that change the life of their family. And I think it's really honorable to want to share that. However, unfortunately, there's not a lot of education provided with the MLM companies. And I know there are certain kind of like certifications with the programs, which I think are really sketchy. I've kind of looked into them. So be careful about getting educated from the companies. So they're spreading all this information. And then as on the other side, aromatherapists see this and they see people getting hurt. They see people like having to bring their baby and their young kids into the hospital because they can't breathe because their parents put peppermint or eucalyptus on them or around their faces. And then they see that like, teacher MLMers decide, I'm going to diffuse my classroom. That's a good way of like promoting my oils and talking to parents. It's going to be like a conversation starter. And then issues arise. Do the kids have allergies? Do the kids have asthma? Do the kids, are there essential oils that are not safe for the kids? I've seen news stories where there's a school that ended up calling, and I think it's the fire station when they think that there's carbon monoxide poisoning, or if I said that right, because the kids' eyes were dilated, and then they trace it back to a diffuser that wasn't properly used.
I remember that.
Yeah. So it's like, so I understand why aromatherapists can be like, but then I understand how like MLMers can be like, because like they're trying to do the business and then they have the resistance of the aromatherapist. Sometimes the aromatherapist is kind of rude. Sometimes the aromatherapist is kind, but either way, this person's trying to build a business. So, like I see why this happens, but I just don't think it's really necessary.
I agree. I think there's a way, like I mentioned, we both know her. She's an aromatherapist and an MLMer, and she's awesome. And so, I mean, it can go hand in hand. I think you're right. I think the frustration comes because they're like, hey, I'm trying to build a business here. And it's frustrating to have someone say, okay, the information that you're spreading is unsafe, because they don't want to feel like, nobody wants to feel poo-pooed on, and that's, I understand that feeling. I had a conversation with somebody a year and a half ago where I was looking into joining her in her business, and this is an MLM business. And I was excited, and I was like, I'm an aromatherapist, and this is going to be awesome. And as soon as I told her I was an aromatherapist, it was like, oh, well.
Was it an oily MLM?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, it was an oily MLM. And so it's actually one that I was already a part of, but I hadn't been active in it, and I was looking to switch to her team. Anyway, so when I told her I was an aromatherapist, it just automatically, oh, well, we kind of see things and teach things differently here. And so I want you to, it was I felt automatically disqualified. And like all of my study and hard work in becoming an aromatherapist was not valued, because for whatever reason I was wrong the way I looked at essential oils, and that was hard.
Yeah. And like it becomes so personal too, right?
Yeah, it does.
And it's like at the same time, like as like someone, if I was an MLMer, I didn't know, and I just wanted to like build my business, like momentum, right? That's a key word in like MLMs, momentum. Then you have an aromatherapist in the Facebook group saying like cautioning people or making them kind of like put on the brakes. That's not really helpful for the business either financially.
Yeah.
Like, man, like I've had something similar too, where I was in one of the Facebook groups and someone said, I have somebody who's interested in buying essential oils and they want to know if like this essential oil is safe for my kids. And this was before I was really educated, but I was looking into resources. I was like, well, according to Cicerine, it says according to this, just thought I'd leave these resources here just in case anyone wanted to look at like people who were like professionals. And then someone like legit like was like, well, you know what, aromatherapists know nothing and they're crap, and like, you know, like straight up just like attacking me. I was like, I'm not even one. Like, I'm just kind of like providing some like neutral resources.
Yeah.
So it's like there's a hostility, but then there's also hostility on the other side. Like when I was, after I became an aromatherapist and I joined another, like I went back to one of the MLM oily companies I was at, one of the rules to be part of the Facebook group of aromatherapists was like, you cannot be an MLMer. You cannot be involved in MLM, which I was like, okay, I'm not going to be promoting it. So I applied to be in it because I was like, I mean, why not? Like, I'm not going to be promoting it. And he like went through all my Facebook stuff and found that I had a post with that company's products, and he like blocked, or he like, you can't come in, you're an MLMer. And like, there's a time where he contacted me before, because I put like, I advertised my services on Marketplace. Like, if anyone wants to get to know about oils, this is before I was an aromatherapist, like, you know, consultations, which I was kind of questionable now looking back on it. And he went in, he was just like insulting the whole time. And I'm like, man, like, can people be kind? Like on both sides, can people just be kind?
Well, and it's unfortunate too, because if there was a better relationship there, think of the benefits, you know, think of the benefits of people having the knowledge and the information and the power to use essential oils safely and sustainably, and just being confident in that. I think that would be, but unfortunately there's, like you said, there's this hostility there.
Yeah, definitely. And I just saw Tammy's comment that it was from before about the baby getting the breathe.
Oh, yeah.
Like, sprinkled in the face. Yeah, poor baby.
Yeah.
Can't imagine. Are we ready for the next question? I think so, hey?
Yeah, I think so.
We're going to hit our 1 hour time limit.
Yeah.
Okay. So why is it important to get your, I'm getting all tongue tied. Why is it important who you get your information from, essential oil information? And what advice would you give to people getting essential oil information?
I would say pay attention to, for lack of a better term, like, what skin do they have in the game, right? Like, are they trying to sell you something? Like, is this person telling you, you know, drop 3 drops of lemon essential oil in your water in the morning and then at night? And like, why? What is the motivation? And sometimes motivation is hard to discern, but if someone's selling you a product, and they're not giving you any like safety recommendations, that's a red flag for me. I would look for somebody who, you know, there are chemists who have specialized and dedicated their lives and their education to studying essential oils. There are scientists, the same thing. They've dedicated their careers and their lives to studying essential oils. And there are essential oil educators, like I think of Robert Tisserand, who has spent his whole life, you know, his whole professional life trying to educate people about safety and essential oils. And it's not because he wants to sell you something. It's because he wants you to have knowledge. And I mean, he's not trying to sell you a bunch of essential oils. He's trying to teach you and I kind of like, I know that probably sounds bold, and I'm not trying to say like that all MLMers, stay away from them, don't listen to them. Like, that's not what I'm trying to say, but just pay attention to motivation, I would say. And also to the education that person has. Education is a big deal. It really is. And I don't mean education, you know, from a specific brand company, like
like essential oil
company. I don't mean that. I mean, like, you know, becoming an aromatherapist and like you mentioned before, Jessie, there's a lot of programs where you could pretty much become an aromatherapist overnight if you wanted to, that are kind of
sketchy.
Yeah. But
cereal box certification.
Yeah. And I've seen, like, you've posted some things about your case studies, and it brought back PTSD because case studies I just put a lot of effort. I put a lot of effort into education, and there was chemistry in there, and there was anatomy, and all sorts of things. And so, I don't know, pay attention to the education as well.
Mm-hmm. And something I'll mention too is like, there's this thing called like, I know one of the MLMs have like a certification program for people where they become like essential oil specialist after. So be careful with that. I think Aromahead, which is actually credible, they might have a similar title. So I think that's why I want to be careful about saying avoid essential oil specialists in terms of like trusting valid information, but just know where they get the information from if they are educated. So Tammy says it gets messy when it comes to someone's pocketbook. Yes. And then she also says, yes, is financial gain their motivation, or do they really care? Yes. And that's touchy because like I've mentioned this in my other videos, like be careful, or like if you're getting information from someone who will financially gain if you buy, like be mindful of that. But that doesn't necessarily disqualify them either. You know, like for me, if I was an MLM in the MLM pursuing it as a business, like I'd still, of course, want to make money. Like that's the point of like having a business. And I'm an affiliate for different essential oil companies. So people order through my link, that supports me, that supports my channel. But it's like, so in a sense, like I do gain financial gain if people use my links, but it's like, there's that really murky water where it's like, if you know for sure that they won't gain money off of you, you know, it's pretty like, you don't have to like, it's not that confusing, but if they do gain money off of you, it's like Tammy said, like, do they really care? Is it just money? Is it both? Like, what's going on, you know?
Yeah, well, and even Robert Tisserand, he has different classes and certifications, so he's selling something, but I mean, what's the motivation there? It's not, I don't know. You can tell what someone's motivation is by what their focus. How do you say this? I'm not sure how to say what I want to say. Maybe it'll come to me.
That's okay. I'll take over a little bit. But yeah, like I like what you said. Is like ask yourself, like, do they get financial gain from it? Do they not? Because that can kind of help see their motivations. Like, what are the motivations? 2, are they educated? Are they not? Kind of taking that into account. And like you can still purchase from someone who is not educated, but just know that like you can look outwards, elsewhere, which I do have a different video talking about, like aromatherapy safety, essential oil safety resources if people are actually interested. And I had someone talk to me today about, they said that they got like an MLM essential oil book. And they're like, oh, I don't know if I really want to use it because it's unsafe, but like, it sounds bad, but they're kind of some of the best books when it comes to like simple, what oil do I use for that? What can I do with that oil? But I always filter it through safety information. But yeah, so I don't think it's wrong to have like those oils or those kind of like resource books, as long as you properly know how to filter through the safety information, because they're one of my favorite books and apps because they're so helpful.
Yeah, and I think you bring up an important point too. You can buy essential oils and use essential oils from, you know, there are MLM companies that have really great quality, and I love their oils. And you can take what, you know, your upline or the person is telling you, the person who's selling it to you is telling you, you can take it and then you can do your own research. You don't have to have an aromatherapy certification necessarily. You just have to understand that there are multiple resources out there, and you do your research.
Yeah.
Because I don't want to make people feel like they can't use essential oils because they're all scary and they're all unsafe. Like, I don't want to make people feel that way. And so I mean, I want to make people feel empowered. And so that's what I would say, is to do your research.
Yeah. Cause like, I feel like there's a lot of fear mongering as well. Like, don't use this or your child will die. You know, like I'm exaggerating, but like, I think there's a lot of like fear mongering in the professional community as well. Oh, and Tammy says, I trust you, Jess. It doesn't apply to you. Thank you. But I'm okay if people don't trust me, or they're like, it's natural though, when people are trying to sell you something and they give you information. So I totally get that some people will be skeptical, may not want to use my links, but I just wanted to bring that out there, that just because people are selling doesn't mean that they're like,
Yeah. And I'm an affiliate as well, and so I don't, but it's important to me that people know how to use these essential oils. And I feel like that's where you're at as well, Jess. So.
Yeah. So I'm thinking like we could probably start closing up soon. Do you have any closing words? Oh, I got a good question. I'm trying to get this tag off first. I don't know how to get rid of that. Okay, there. I guess where can people find you if they want to find you? And what are some closing words you would have to somebody who is in an MLM and just kind of like wondering like, yeah, like I don't know where to go. I don't know what to do for safety. Like what are kind of some advice you'd give to somebody who's in an MLM?
I would say, that's a question I've asked myself when I was part of an MLM, like, how do I navigate through this? Because I now I have this education and this knowledge as an aromatherapist. And it kind of contradicts some things that I'm some information that I'm getting from this company that I'm a part of. I would say it's okay to blaze your own trail. Like, it's okay to talk about your love for the products and how to safely use them. I don't think it's a bad thing to be part of an MLM. I think that there are some great opportunities out there. And so if that's your choice, or if that's your decision, and the choice that you've made to be a part of an MLM, you're okay. I'm not saying that you're a terrible person or anything like that. Like I find value in what you do. And I think that you can blaze your own trail. I think you can talk about how to use them safely and effectively and all of that. And so that's what I would say.
I like that. And if people want to find you, can I put your Instagram in the description?
Yes, for sure.
Good. So I'll have her, actually I already have it. I would have taken it up if you didn't want to. But yeah, so if you go down the description of the replay, you'll see where to find Amy on Instagram. You can follow her. For me, I think my advice, I'm going to ask myself the question as well, is I think I would say like, you do you, boo. You like one essential oil brand, that only, that's what you want to use, you do that. Like I'm happy for people when they find a brand that they like. I really do. I'm not anti-MLM, even though I had a little phase. I'm sorry if you guys like got to know me during that time. But yeah, if you like one essential oil or multiple brands, you do what's important to you. But I really strongly recommend that if anyone's in kind of the MLM community, oily MLM community, to really do your research outside the company, to do your research outside of the certifications given by the company, and to pick up some like valuable safety resources that are actually recommended by aromatherapists, that are written by aromatherapists. I know Plant Therapy is a company I like, and they have a blog. Even if you don't buy their essential oils, they have really good safety blog information. Yeah. And yeah, just like, don't be afraid to take things with a grain of salt, test it, just like anything in life, and be safe.
Yeah, there's so much good information out there, right? So much at our fingertips. It would be silly to not take advantage of that.
Definitely. But I think we should we could end it on that, hey?
Yeah.
So Tammy finishes really nicely saying, thank you both very much. Love your discussion. Tammy, we love you. We love that you're a part of this. So I'll say, yeah, if you guys want to see any of my videos, they'll be popping up on the screen on the replay, and I'll see you on the other side, Amy.
Okay. See ya. Thank you.
Bye, guys.